We know that justice and peace cannot come from war, nor from the despair and uncertainty that originates from the insistence on threat and terror and counter-terrorism. Our alternative is to go on building, in the midst of the conflict, a just and participative society, starting with those who have been excluded, simply because we are human beings. Perhaps we will never see the final result of our efforts. Any day, everything could be destroyed. But there is an energy, the inner force coming from the experience of our dignity, coming from the community, coming from people like you, supporting us, inspiring us, moving us to continue to keep going. Thank you.
Roving microphones, and so we'll have a little period of questions here.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I just wanted to ask you how you personally sustain yourself in the midst of all of that, and what do you do when you get afraid, or do you ever get afraid, and do you sometimes feel like it must be somewhat hopeless? I mean, what do you do to keep yourself going in the midst of all of that?
Personal question, huh? Well, I don't feel personal difficulties to be there in the midst of risk and death. People threaten us. My anxiety is probably the fact that many people are being involved in this process. And my anguish, my anxiety is not for myself. Probably in these 12 years, only twice I felt sort of being frightened. But I have to say that obviously the reason, the base, the energy, well, I'm a believer. I'm sure we are not going to have the kingdom of God in our history. You know, it's like ideal we are working for. But for me, silence, meditation, prayer is central. I was explaining to Paul and his group that I have the responsibility of a corporation, which is called the Corporation for Peace and Development in the area. I mean, we have an institution in order to manage, especially the thing you have to maintain. And when I sign a contract with any person participating in this sort of work, well, always there are 2 points in the contract. And one, the first and most important, you are going to work here full time. Please, you must dedicate 1 hour a day to yourself. And this is part of your work, the most important part of your work. It's time we're going to pay you for this work. And it's that important that if I call you, being the director, at the moment you are spending, you are using, you are taking this hour of yours for your personal work, please don't come. Tell me that you are totally busy. And I never tell them how to work because this is a personal issue. I explain to them, we need your freedom. We need your strength. We need your clarity, your transparency. You are going to go involved in very difficult moments. So we need you to be in contact with yourself, with your dignity. You see what I mean? And this comes from an hour a day personal experience. So I tell them anything. Write a diary. Have an hour of sort of Buddhist meditation. Read the gospel. Listen to classical music. Go for a walk in silence. But we need that. Without that, it is impossible, you know? And I myself, obviously, I try to do the same every day. I have to say that when I ask people, okay, how it is going? How are you doing it? It's difficult for people, you know? Even if you pay them, it's difficult for us to take ourselves seriously.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. It's an incredible honor to hear you speak about dignity and spirituality and love. From both sides, from every single angle that is involved in a conflict like there is in Colombia. I wanted to ask you about resistance as part of social change and social transformation. The word resistance comes to my mind because I struggle imagining how you can have dialogue or conversation when you're dealing with corporations, for instance, because the amount of power that they have, the amount of economical power, the amount of, therefore, of military power, and etc. So, and I see resistance as a very valid role when you are able to say, we're not going to go that far. This is as far as we're going to go. But then how does that look like in the context of dialogue when you know that the person that you're talking to still has a lot of power to silence you, to kill you, to threaten you? How does resistance take place then?
It's a very good question. You know, we have in the Magdalena Medio region areas, zones we call humanitarian spaces, where people are living just in the war, where communities have to empower themselves in order not to be abused by the paramilitaries or by the guerrillas, where the point of human rights and protecting life and human security is at stake, and where resistance, civil resistance, plays a central place. But it is there, especially there, where people, as in Mico Ahumado, the story I told you about Mico Ahumado, where people have organized themselves, have trained themselves in order to go to dialogue. This sort of combination of there are things we cannot negotiate. The first one is our dignity, but there are many things we have to negotiate. This is the situation with the firms, the international corporation arriving there in an open world.